Times change. People change. People change faster than time in some ways. You're probably thinking, what are those two bars on the side of the screen? Why is my hair so long? And what am I doing? Let me answer those one by one. Snyder cut? None of your business. And this is an idea that I've had for a while and I felt like doing, where it's just an impromptu video of me talking about whatever's on the top of my head. Because I'm the kind of person, before I tweet someone or before I before I tweet something or before I message someone, I always want to read what I'm typing out loud and make sure that I can vocalize or verbalize that. And that is what I'm doing right now. This is a bad segue. Oversimplifying is something that I think is the root or a factor of so many problems nowadays. Now again, there's nothing wrong with wanting something simple, but when you want something so simple that you ignore basically a lot of information, a lot of details that could point otherwise, just for the sake of the simplicity, then I think you're gonna need to listen up. Oversimplifying, or to oversimplify, is to simplify to such an extent as to bring about distortion, misunderstanding, or error. In transitive verb, to engage in undue or extreme simplification. Thank you, Merriam-Webster, for not sponsoring this, but I appreciate your service to this world. All right. Now, in that sense, I apologize for that. So like I mentioned earlier, simplifying, there's nothing wrong in wanting things simple. However, simple is kind of a complex term, it's kind of, even in itself, ironically, simple is not something that you can just assume. With simplicity comes with simplicity comes acceptance. So acceptance of all the details of what it is. Let me give you an example. In terms of simplifying what a person is, because based on a certain incident or a certain first impression, for example, you meet them in a public place, don't go out, it's 2021 quarantine, be safe, wear masks. But just hypothetically, you meet someone in real life and they give off a bad example. That doesn't define the person at all, because I've heard people tell stories about that, and until this day, they still hold that impression of a certain person because of their first impression of them, based entirely on that, despite never getting to know that person. Because trust me, I've been the awkward guy in those scenarios, so don't worry. But I am trying to say is that I hope we stop looking at each other like basic things or judging a book by its cover. Yes, that has been said a lot. But I felt the need to remind you. I felt the need to bring this up again because it is tough, It is tough seeing other people look at other people differently, especially in the social media landscape. It is tough looking at or considering that many people are able to be mean to each other just because of a specific bio of something, that bio meaning like something they added to their profile or profile picture, or just based on how they act in one direction, in one certain scenario. What I'm trying to say is that I hope that everyone understands that human beings are three-dimensional beings. Again, three-dimensional. We're not simple. I mean, we can be simplified, sure, but never oversimplified to the fact where you completely distort your image or your conception of what a person is, because they are human. And to be human is to be flawed, to be dimensional, to have so many layers to yourself. You can probably, another example that oversimplifying can apply to is that you may be judging someone because they're a younger position than you, because of that title that you're in a higher status than them, doesn't necessarily mean that they're in a lower status than you. Well, that is what the status quo and that is how society deems it. That does not make up the person as a whole. I want you to understand that we are human beings and we are not necessarily limited to one adjective or two adjectives. There's a lot. So what I'm saying is to please, I apologize if I'm repeating any phrases. This is unedited. I'm the kind of person that I have a lot on my plate. College student, I don't really have time for editing. But what I'm trying to say is to don't be ignorant. Don't try to accept and understand more in terms of interaction. This isn't because no specific incident incited this video, but just judgment or there's not one specific, there's a couple probably that incited my idea for this video, but just when it comes to judging people, you have to take in as much as you can. Don't take in a little. Don't take in one tiny dash of sugar and be like, that person is sweet. No, because they could have so much more sides. I hope my message is coming across. This is the first time doing this. I hope that you guys probably will, I hope that you guys take something from this in some way and that understand that people are people. There's not one way to do it. Another issue that I'm going to mention is racism and sexism. This is ultimately these are problems that are unacceptable and ultimately rooted in older generations because they were normal back then. But what they do is they judge how someone is based on how they look or who they are or what their classification is. And to that I say no. They're much more than that. Much, much, much more than that. Human beings are so much more than that. We are so much more capable of doing it, of doing whatever we put our minds to. And I hope that everyone has that understanding because we are strong as one. And if we get to know, get to understand each other, then I honestly think many people could benefit from that. You know, just saying.